My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Today we have visiting with us Mr. James Harris, a local resident of the city of North Chicago, and we will be talking about issues that face the city of North Chicago. Before we start, we'd like to open up with a short prayer. God, our help in ages past and our hope for years to come. We ask that thou would be with us during this interview with Mr. James Harris. Give us the vision as we address the issues of the city of North Chicago. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Greetings, Mr. Harris.
How are you?
Mr. Harris, I have been observing you for many years. As a matter of fact, as far as 1974, we had two youngsters that attended Thompson Tyler's Daycare Center. And I want you to tell us about what they're doing now. I know they're excelling because they had a good start. But first of all, tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Well, it's ironic you said that. I was born and raised in North Chicago. I grew up right here on your site at 1912 Sherman.
This particular site?
This particular site. I grew up right here.
Okay.
Went to Green Bay Grade School, Neil Junior High School, and then North Chicago High School.
Okay.
After high school, I went to college. I met my wife, matter of fact, in high school. And we went to college, we got married, and I think we had a successful life. We finished college. I have a systems engineering degree, behavioral science degree, and then a master's degree in business administration. My wife, she has a behavioral science degree.
Okay.
We have two children, like you said. My oldest son is Earl. He went through the first class you had.
Okay, 1975?
Yes, he went through the first class you had here, and he graduated here. Then my youngest son, Ryan, he also attended here. They went to school here until we relocated. In 1982, my job transferred me to Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And then I was gone for 20 years. But, I gained a lot of experience, a lot of growth in that time. In that 20 years, I've lived in Hudson, I've lived in Detroit, I've lived in Atlanta, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Columbus, Ohio. So I've traveled quite a bit. But they're all career-oriented and growth moves, for myself. And so, I've developed a lot personally. I think I've developed a lot professionally. And at this point, I think I have a lot to offer the community.
The mobility was not a factor when I finished college, but now youngsters, if you have to be mobile to advance in management, right?
You have to be mobile even to get hired. Even if you don't intend to move, you have to answer those questions correctly. Okay. But corporate America has changed so much. When I started in corporate America in '74 versus the way it is right now. In '74, during the '70s, if you had a job, you pretty much had it for life. Okay. Today, with automation and the technological advances, you'd be lucky to stay with the company 5 years. And then also, too, they cut out a lot of middle management. Technology has gotten rid of middle management. And I think you're starting to see the effect of that right now. So pretty much what you're going to have is the executive level, and then you're going to have the workers.
Wow. I know when my youngsters were in high school, we had them take courses in computer technology at the College of Lake County. And so now they have computers right in even grade schools.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, my grandson has a computer in his room, and he had it ever since he was 3 years old. So, and they learn very quickly. They learn very quickly. So technology is just where everything is going right now. You want to do more and more and more with less and less and less.
Okay, okay. And, well, since you mentioned that, this caused a lot of stress among employees, too, that you didn't have before.
It causes stress, but I have to be honest with you. When you're working in corporate America, you know what's coming. Okay. If you don't take the initiative to prepare yourself, then you know what's going to happen. So, it's kind of a self-assessment, and it's for self-starters. And so if you want to sit back and say, well, I have a position, I have a job for life, and you don't do anything to prepare yourself, you're not going to be working long. And it's an old adage, Does the person have 20 years experience or 1 year experience 20 times? And there's a significant difference.
Mr. Harris, what piqued your interest to get involved in politics?
Back in the 70s, when I was on the police force in North Chicago, a lot of the policemen would argue about the conditions, some of the political things that affected their livelihood. And so, working with those guys, talking to them and listening to them, I said, well, you know, I could be in a position to help them. So I decided I'm going to run for Alderman. And a lot of them said, yeah, we need a voice up there. So I said, yep, I'm going to run. And so that's what really piqued my interest.
What were some of the challenges that you faced when you became Alderman?
Well, you know, it's like anything else. You know, I was young. I was 24 years old. And, you know, when you're 24 and you're talking to people 50 or 60, they figure this kid don't know what he's talking about. So it was a learning experience for me. I had never been involved in politics. And so it was a great learning experience. But I think the biggest challenge was the age factor.
Being as young as you were, then family support was great importance.
The family support is key no matter what you do. And it was very instrumental. My wife supported me 100%. My kids were too young, but my wife gave me 100% support.
This is great. Tell us about the city of North Chicago. How did you find it? Tell us about the assets here in North Chicago.
Well, when you look at North Chicago, the biggest asset, I think, right now is Great Lakes Naval Training Center. That along with Great Lakes, you also have Abbott Laboratories, you have the lake, you have US 41 in the tollway, which is easy access back and forth. So I think those are the primary assets. Then you have Coleman Industry, which has a lot of little industries, you know, within Coleman Industry also.
The North Chicago Medical Center?
Medical Center, Chicago Medical School. And
surrounded by Baxter Laboratory, the Legion, and so forth. You know. So North Chicago really should be on the move.
Should be.
You're right. Okay, well, tell us about a mayor. A mayor is a leader in the city.
Correct.
And how should the mayor, what is the mayor's primary responsibility?
I think the mayor has to have a vision for the community. You know, you have to decide where do you envision the city to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And it's like any other process, whether you're in corporate America or in politics. Once you have that vision, then what is your strategy to get there? And so you have to have a roadmap and plans on how you're going to get or accomplish the vision that you have.
Also a salesman too, right?
Absolutely.
What we call a salesman is a public relations person, but a mayor should have the ability to attract businesses to come into the city.
And not only you have to be able to attract them, but before you can attract them, you have to be able to speak their language. You know, it's very difficult for a person that's never been into a boardroom, never been into an executive meeting, to know what happens there. What motivates the company? Why would a company want to come here? You know, you have to know pretty much, it's like a salesman. In order for me to sell to you, I pretty much got to know your company, I have to know your product, I have to know what I have that's going to help you do what you need to do. And it's the same thing with the city. How can we help them accomplish whatever their corporate objectives are?
Being an alderman, I'm sure that you look back now and look at what's happening on the city council in North Chicago now. Do you kind of feel that you wish you were in your seat again?
Well, you know, it's one thing that I never do. I never look backwards and say, I wish I had done this and I wish I had done that. I make a decision and I go with it and I make it, you know, make it work the best I can. I think that had I not relocated, I wouldn't be the person I am now, and I wouldn't have the things to offer that I have right now. The development for me the last 20 years is insurmountable.
You have a great asset. You have been a policeman, you mentioned, and you've been an alderman. As a matter of fact, you were the 5th Ward alderman at that time.
Correct.
But let's look at North Chicago. The location is so important too, right?
Correct. Location is key to anything. It's always key. Location is key. And you know, when you look at North Chicago, a lot of things have happened around us. Not within the city, everything is around us. And again, it goes back to that leadership, that vision, that person that can go out and promote the city, can demand some of the things that we need. You know, you look at North Chicago, and I look at all entities of government as interactive. You have a park board, you have a school board, you have the city, and you have the county. They're separate entities, but they also should mesh together. You know, the goal for each one of those should come to a common goal for the community itself. I don't see that happening right now. I don't see North Chicago putting together plans and vision for what we're going to do for, for the school district, for the park district, and also from county's perspective. I think all entities should get together on a periodic basis and determine where are we going? What can we do to help each other? Because from a citizen standpoint, it's just, the dollars just come out of different pockets. It's the same money just come out of different pockets.
Well, let's look at this. Many of our listening audiences, except maybe the youth also, maybe watching the program. Let's talk about the government organization. It doesn't matter whether it's the United States Senate, the House of Representatives, or what organization, state, local level. Describe the organization.
Well, you have three basic branches of government. You have the legislative, judicial, and administrative.
Okay.
And then that's just basically as you can get. The legislative branch makes law.
Okay.
The administrative branch administers the law.
Okay.
And the judicial branch enforces the law.
Okay.
So those are, kind of it in a nutshell.
So if the organization structurally is going to be successful, they have to follow the structure that you just.
You have to follow the structure, and what happens is if your leader is not leading, then everyone is doing their own thing. You know, the administrative branch is not in sync with the legislative branch. Then you're not going to have any cohesion, and you're going to have anarchy.
Well, there are many different types of leadership, though, because I talked with the late Reverend H.J. Cook, formerly of the Gideon Missionary Baptist Church, and I asked him how was he so successful. He was president of the North Shore Ministerial Alliance at that time. He said, Brother Brooks, what I did, I find out which way the brethren are going, and I get in front of them.
That's one way to lead.
That's one way. Now you may not want to lead that way, right?
Well, I just due to my experience, I've always had to be in the forefront and direct which way we go, with input from the my subordinates.
Okay.
And I think it's like that's what you need in a city. Once you draw your plan of where you want the city to go, then they're all of them, and they should be a part of that process.
Okay.
They should be a part of that vision. And so when you make people a part of a vision, they buy into the vision, and so they're going to support it. I can't just have a myopic view and say, this is what we're going to do. And if all of them don't buy into it, well, we see what happens when all of them don't buy into what you want to do. It's not going to happen.
Brother Harris, you mentioned an interesting point, a plan. There should be a plan in every city, right?
Absolutely.
In other words, there should be, I remember the late Mayor Kukla was speaking about the vision.
Right.
The vision. A leader has to have a vision for the Alderman to follow.
Right. And that vision should be publicized. It shouldn't be a secret. And everything that you do, every dollar that's spent should be, the goal is to spend, and the dollars and the things that you do should be aimed at meeting what the mission is. That's exactly what should happen.
One other thing while we're on this, we have several people within a city wants to be mayor. You think a person out of the city would be successful as mayor rather than going through the process of being alderman and have some knowledge of how the city runs?
Well, I look at it this way. Interesting you said that. First of all, the leadership, the qualities of a mayor, should be there, number one.
Okay.
Let's look at corporate America. Many times there may be a position open, a management position, and you have fully capable people within your organization that can fill that position.
Okay.
But they elect to go outside and hire somebody from outside. There's a lot of benefits in doing that. First of all, you get new ideas. Okay, when you stay within the same structure and the same people, you're going to get more of the same.
Okay.
Ideas don't change that often, so you need fresh meat, you need new blood, you need new ideas. Whether you're an alderman to become a mayor, I don't think it's necessary. If you've had the administrative experience, the leadership qualities, and a visionary person, I think those are the qualities that you should look for. Being an alderman or being around City Hall just doesn't matter.
That's a good point. The point I was making, though, you should be knowledgeable about how the government system works.
You should be, but again, one of the things that you want to be able to do is to bring in new ideas. One of the things that I heard the city say that they want to do, we need to hire a controller.
Okay.
Okay, they said, well, we want a controller that has municipal experience. What difference does it make? You know, numbers don't change, whether you're in corporate America, whether you're in a municipal government. The numbers don't change. The processes don't change. GAAP is GAAP no matter what. General accounting practices, it's the same no matter what. Okay. So, and I think sometimes the way things are done, maybe those new ideas come from corporate America, could be beneficial, could be more cost effective. So I don't know that you have to be in the infrastructure to be successful in the infrastructure.
We've had successful presidents of the United States that were surrounded themselves with experts. And this is what you want to do, right? If you want to be a successful leader, surround yourself with experts and not just friends.
That's the key. The funny part about it is the last position I had in Atlanta, I had some good people working for me. Okay. And they were so good that 3 days out of the week we played golf. And I mean, okay. Not only myself, but the president. And you know, we go out and play golf because we had good people working for us. And that's what the key is that you hire people, you create an environment for them to be successful, and you let them be successful. You know, when you hire someone, you let them do their job. You can't do their job. You can't micromanage. Okay. You know, you have to be at the big picture while they're working at the lower level, making things happen for you.
You mentioned a great point there. Micromanage and micromanage. Right. You want to...
Well, you know, a macro is a big picture. Okay. Okay, for an example, you know, you want to build this building. Okay. Okay, and you have a macro, you have a vision of what this building is going to look like. Okay, but once you come up with that, you have the plans put together, and then you get your contractors. Well, they're going to operate at the micro level. They're going to be doing the, you know, putting up the framing, the concrete. You're not going to be involved in that. Now, when they call micromanaging, if you were here every day telling the cement finishers how to do their job, overlooking the carpenters, overlooking every aspect of it, well, you can't get your job done overlooking what somebody else should be doing. So, you know, those are the biggest differences there.
Well, you mentioned about the golf course, and we mentioned that very important decisions are made on the golf course.
Absolutely.
In other words, you don't have to be behind the desk to make decisions. Matter of fact, it may be healthy to get your people out away from that setting.
Absolutely.
And make decisions.
You know, I look at the way some of the things are done here in City Hall compared to the way it was done when I was here. Okay. And the aldermen, they should have an expense account. You know, how can you deal with corporate America, with business people, if you don't have a vehicle in order to entertain them? I mean, that should be a strategic part of the budgeting process. And that should be a significant expense account because you hope that investment is going to be a great return on that down the road.
I'm looking at opportunities for growth. Do we have a lot of opportunities for growth here in the city of North Chicago?
You always have opportunities for growth. And the biggest challenge for a leader is to find ways to get things done. You don't take no for an answer, and you come up with ways, brainstorming, community involvement, but you look for ways to get things done. The biggest thing that I've noticed since I've been here is probably the privatization of Great Lakes. People don't, I don't know if people have a vision on how big that is, but if there is a contract between Great Lakes and North Chicago to take care of the water plants, the maintenance, the electrical, can you imagine the amount of jobs and businesses that would be created out of that? I mean, that's a wealth of opportunity. And everyone in North Chicago should be looking forward to, hey, I wanted to start my business, this is the opportunity to do it. People that need a job, this is the opportunity to do it. The city of North Chicago could take care of North Chicago, and growth would be tremendous, you know, with the privatization. The other areas, you know, of opportunity in North Chicago, you know, if you look at North Chicago now, North Chicago is changing over a period of time. Okay. Some areas of North Chicago is fantastic, and some areas are blighted. Every time you see a blighted area, that's an opportunity. Okay. When you look down Sheridan Road, that's an opportunity. We have nothing there. That's an opportunity. When you look at 22nd Street and Sheridan Road, that's an opportunity. There is a wealth of opportunity. The other opportunities is meeting with your businesses, your Chamber of Commerce. What can we do to help you? How can we help you grow? You know, we have one of the largest bus manufacturers here in North Chicago. I don't think a lot of people know that. And if you look at
it's a Liberty Coach,
and look at those buses, they are immaculate.
Okay.
Those things start at $500,000.
Wow.
Why isn't there a brochure on North Chicago that broadcasts the benefits of North Chicago, so that you can hand it to anybody that's going to spread propaganda about your community? We don't have that. You know, you have to have that vision, and you have to be able to sell that vision.
You mentioned about the vision. The Lakehurst area was opportunity for North Chicago, but North Chicago did not take advantage of it.
That is what I've heard. You know, I've heard that many times. Fortunately, none of that legislation come before the council when I was there. But I did hear that we had the opportunity to go to Lakehurst, all of 14th Street on the south and north side of 14th Street, between Green Bay Road and Waukegan Road, also could have been a part of North Chicago. It's unfortunate.
We mentioned about vision. Mr. Balin, John Balin, I guess, had a vision of getting Twin City Park. Now, Twin City Park is under the jurisdiction of Fox Park, but it's physically it's in Waukegan.
Yeah.
But he has the vision to go after it and to get it.
And that's not uncommon. You know, one of the things that I've noticed, especially when I think when we lived in Ohio, you know, it was really strange that you lived in one city, but you were in another city's school district, for example.
Okay.
And so, you know, that was strange to me, because in North Chicago, they only have one school district. You lived in North Chicago, you went to North Chicago schools. You lived in Waukegan, you went to Waukegan schools.
Okay.
You lived in Zion, you went to Zion schools. Well, many communities are having, you live in Waukegan, you go to North Chicago school district. And that's not uncommon in other areas of the country.
Well, when anyone want to select the city to move in, we a lot of discussion about professionals that come to Abbott and even the Great Lakes. They look at other areas to locate in. As a matter of fact, they have sponsors to assist them, and the sponsors lead them to other areas. And we in the city are wondering why. Why is that?
I can give you my experience. We relocated 3 times.
Okay.
You're correct about sponsors. When you go into a company and you're going to relocate, real estate officers cannot tell you, don't live here, don't live there, because it's against the law.
Okay.
But the people within your company can. So they talk about different areas, or you don't want to live there, you don't want to live there. The first criteria that we looked at when we relocated was school system.
Okay.
How good is the school system? You know, what percentage of the people graduate? What percentage of them go to college? That was #1 criteria. The next criteria that we looked at was activities for our children, parks and recreation. You know, my wife and I work. What can our kids do while we're working? What involvement they're going to have for future development and growth, you know, outside of the school? The last thing we looked at was the home itself, but an appreciation. But if you have a good school system and you have good parks and recreations, then your home's appreciation is going to be there every time, every day.
Well, let's look at the taxation. Now, what do you happen to know the budget of North Chicago approximately?
You know, I'm going to give you some information that is going to be shocking to you.
Okay.
Today, I said, well, let me make a few phone calls just to get a feel for where we're at in North Chicago financially.
Okay.
So I called Waukegan, Zion, Lake Forest, and North Chicago.
Okay.
What I wanted to know was, what is the population and what is your annual budget? And that gives me a sense that I can determine how many millions of dollars per thousand is there available. Okay. Lake Forest, 20,000 people.
Okay.
Annual budget, 46 million. 2.3 million per thousand. That's quite a bit of money per thousand people.
Okay.
Waukegan, 87,000 people. $147 million budget, 1.7 million per person.
Okay.
Zion, 22,000 people, $25 million budget, 1.6. North Chicago, $30 million, population of 13,000. That's $2.3 million per thousand, the same as Lake Forest. So now it makes you wonder what's happening to the money. Why don't we see the growth that you see in Zion, that you see in Waukegan and Lake Forest? And it goes back to mismanagement, in my opinion, of finances. You know, one of the things, Waddell, that I look at is to educate our kids a teacher has to have certain credentials.
Okay.
To be a principal, you have to have certain credentials.
Okay.
To be a superintendent, they want even more credentials.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to church now, in order to be a Sunday school teacher, they want you to be certified.
Okay.
What is the prerequisite for there? That is the biggest asset that you're going to spend your money on, your home. That is the biggest asset. But who do you put in office to overlook that asset? You know, those are the types of things that you have to look at in the community. You know, we tend to look at, well, I know this person for a long time, he's a good friend, he's a relative of that person. That's all well and good. But will you protect my asset? Mm-hmm. You know, will my $150,000 house be worth $250,000 in 3, 4 years, 5 years? How long will it take? Mm-hmm. That is what the essence of what good government does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, what about another asset would be youth? What is the city doing for youth programs?
You know, I can go back to when I was a kid. You know, North Chicago never had a Sears or Montgomery Wards or those large chain stores, but they did have the small stores in the community. Chaplin's down on Sheridan Road, you could buy shoes and things. When we grew up, there was a Little League. The cost, all of the cost wasn't borne by the Park District. The community was involved. Mm-hmm. They would sponsor a baseball team, you had uniforms and things like that. So, you know, the whole cost wasn't borne by the Park District. North Chicago is a small community. Okay. The Park District has a budget of about $1.5 million. That's not a lot. Now, I don't know how much goes to the golf course. I don't know how much goes to programs for the kids itself. But we did lose, you know, that retail support that we did have before. Mm-hmm. When you look, North Chicago, the football program is an excellent program. Okay. The school this year is 2-0. You know, they start the kids out small, which I feel good about because my son was one of the first ones.
Is that the playing?
Yeah, started to do football. And I think that's good. I think we have to make sure that we capture the interest or generate the interest in the programs that the Park Board is offering.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, as we mentioned about food chains, we had a Jewel store, which is everybody's aware of, but that was a Kroger store here too on
Sheridan Road.
Sheridan Road.
Yes.
You know, two major chains that we let get away.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, again, I don't know why they left. Okay. I don't know why the last chain left was Jewel, then it was Big G's. I don't know what happened there. Mm-hmm. But an administration, it is his responsibility to make sure that you have the services for your people. You have to do that. And so I don't think any problem or any challenge is too great that we couldn't retain businesses here.
Okay. Very optimistic and right on time, you know. What about township? We have 2 townships here in the city of North Chicago. Yes. Is that an asset or a problem?
It depends on if you feel you're getting your fair share from those townships. Yeah, Waukegan Township and Shields Township. Okay. Ironic thing about it is, many times people say that it's unfair, the tax, and we pay greater taxes in Shields Township than Waukegan Township. Okay. Well, it's not quite true. Okay. What I found out today was, okay, first of all, in order to determine taxes, you take the assessed valuation of your home. It's 1/3 of that. Okay. Then they take any deductions from that you're entitled to, any entitlements. For example, if you're owner-occupied, you get $3,500 off. Okay, senior citizen gets something off. Okay. So you take all of those and assessments that you can subtract from the entitlements and subtract it from that. Then it's based on the tax rate. Mm-hmm. Well, this year the tax rate in Waukegan Township is 9%. Okay. In Shields Township is 8.1%. Mm. So Shields Township is lower than Waukegan Township. Now, who generates that number? Believe it or not, the city of North Chicago generates that number, not the township. So whenever those numbers fluctuate, that comes from the city itself. So all the time, Shields have been blamed for more taxes than Waukegan Township, but that number is generated out of City Hall. I was shocked to find that out.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the Great Lakes Naval Base? How does that, what part does that play in the picture of taxation?
North Chicago has the benefit of government funds from the Navy base.
Okay.
We get a lot of money for those students for motor fuel tax, for school systems and things of that nature. And I think the good thing about it is that we get the revenue, but there's no cost associated with it. We don't have to maintain anything at the base. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to provide water. So, you know, there is no cost of sales relative to that. So I think that's a good benefit for the city of North Chicago.
No police support, no fire support,
right,
or whatever.
Right. And likewise, they are willing to help on any problems that we have. When I was on the police force, at the time the strip was open. And so we would have our patrolmen monitoring the strip. They would also have their MPs. So they were willing to help in the city of North Chicago all the time.
Well, let's talk about a topic that everyone is talking about, and that's crime. Is there more crime in North Chicago than it was when you were here several years ago?
Yes, it is. And you know, when you talk about in any problem, you have to go to the root cause of the problem and try to fix it. You know, it's just like a person setting fires in the city of North Chicago. So North Chicago says, well, we got to buy more fire trucks because we got to keep up with the amount of fires that's being set. Well, but the solution is to find the person striking the matches and give it to that person. Then you won't spend money incrementally on trying to fight fires. It's the same thing in North Chicago. If you look, staggering figures, 66% of the single-family units in North Chicago is owned by outside investors.
Wow.
Now, that's a staggering number. Okay, when that number is that high, that means North Chicago is a good investment for Section 8 type homes. So they purchase the homes, they put them on Section 8, and so therefore you get a lot of people in the community that's transient people and don't really care about the community itself. Now that doesn't, there's a certain percentage of people that need Section 8. I can't believe it's as high as it is. I think we have a lot of people here that came to North Chicago that's easy housing, easy to get money. So I'm going to come there. And so they're starting to come and they're starting to overtake the community. 66% is high. That's a very high number.
Wow. In addition to that percentage, we have, you know, we got the assessed valuation is low probably because we have non-taxable property too, you know. The North Chicago, let's see, what is that, the Housing Authority, got, well, the Lake County Housing Authority, got the Marion Jones, we got Prairie View, and we got other non-taxable property.
Well, that doesn't help, but really what determines the value of a property is the resale of a property. Okay, you have a home here, you spend X amount of dollars for that home.
Okay.
You can say your home is worth $250,000.
Okay.
You won't know that until you sell it. Okay. Your home is worth what someone is willing to buy. Okay. And then as they purchase homes, then it's that valuation, they go up, up, up. When you have a stagnant community where nobody is buying homes, then the assessed valuation stays pretty much the same. In North Chicago, homes west of Green Bay Road, and this information I'm giving you is from the North Chicago Comprehensive Plan.
Okay.
Homes west of Green Bay Road run in the area of $105,000 to over $160,000. When you look at some of the condominiums out west by Abbott's, it's upwards of $187,000. When you come across Green Bay Road, you have a 20 to 40% drop. When you go across Lewis Avenue, you have another drop. Now the prices of those homes, when you get into the $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 price range, that is perfect for investors. Because on Section 8, a 4-bedroom home, you can get $1,200 a month. You can buy a $70,000 home, principal and interest at about 5%. Could be $600 to $700 a month. You're making $600 a month. That's a pretty good return. Pretty good return. But that's where the city has to be very careful. You want a balance in your community. You have to have a balance in everything you do. And you know, people need a place to stay. North Chicago is running on a percentage basis 2 or 3 times what the county is running in almost every area. You know, in terms of low income, the poverty level, low income, Section 8 homes, whatever you name it, North Chicago is running 3, 4, 5 times what the county's rate is. I mean, that's doing more than a fair share.
Wow. You know, we spoke about youth programs, but another growing population in our city is senior citizens.
Senior citizens.
What is being done? What will you propose you see done for senior citizens?
I don't think you can do enough for senior citizens. My opinion on senior citizens, once people reach that age of maturity, they have paid. Senior citizens, in my opinion, shouldn't have to pay taxes. They shouldn't have to pay taxes. The community should make sure that there are things for our senior citizens to do, and not determined by the community, but by the senior citizens. You should have a panel of senior citizens. What are the things that they like to do, the activities they like, you know, whether it's going to the boat, going shopping, or going to Gurney, or whatever it is. And we should be able to address them. You know, those are the people that make us who we are. And we wouldn't be who we were if it wasn't for them. And when they retire, they paid their dues. They paid their dues.
We speak about non-taxable property, but another area is churches. We have numerous churches, and we had a statement by one administration that there's enough churches in the city of North Chicago, which I think is probably unfair. You know, the churches, will be here after we're gone.
Yeah, that's true.
and they're housed to teach us how to live, not how to make a living, but how to live. And we're gonna have to be accountable in the book of life. Everything we do is gonna be recorded in the book of life. And but what do you think about churches in the area?
Well,
liability?
You know, that's a tough question. But I want to answer it this way. First of all, when a person has a calling, nobody knows if he was called but him and God.
Okay.
Nobody knows what the motives and the motivations are, what is in someone's heart. If you look at North Chicago, we do have a lot of churches. If you contrast that to Catholic churches, for example, I can't decide tomorrow that I'm going to open up a Catholic church.
Okay.
Now that, I don't know if that's good, bad, or what, but I can't do that. With the Baptist churches, you can decide today you're going to open up a church, get you a storefront or whatever, and now you're in business, you have a church. If you have to measure, my opinion, the quality of life in your community versus the amount of churches. With the amount of churches in North Chicago, everybody should be saved. We shouldn't have the crime that we have. We shouldn't have the drug problem that we have. I mean, a lot of things, sociological, should improve.
Okay.
Okay, if they're not improving, then we got a problem. I think churches should be key in solving some of the community problems. They have to be a key in it. Yeah.
You mentioned the school system. We have to look at educational opportunities as a leader in a city. But what about the school system here in North Chicago? I know both of us have youngsters that graduated, went through the system, graduated, and doing fine. As a matter of fact, my videographer is and her sisters and brothers graduated from North Chicago, and they're doing excellent. We were so excited that we started a Brooks Foundation Scholarship. We give scholarships to high school students, graduating seniors in North Chicago, Waukegan, and Zion to encourage. But how have you found the school system here in North Chicago?
When I went to school here, I thought it was excellent. There was a lot of discipline. There was a lot of parent involvement. The teachers, yes, they had their rules, regulations, and we had to follow. Okay. But it just seems, people say times change. Times hasn't changed. I think people change. Because when we were going to school, if we got in trouble at school, we got in trouble at home. I mean, there were repercussions for it. Nowadays, I don't know. I don't have kids in school, but I do know that from what I've heard, they made a dress code. Well, there was a reason for the dress code. A lot of kids come to school with knives. They have a machine here to detect if you got knives and guns. So there has to have been some significant change in order for those things to be there. The quality of education can be got no matter where you're at. I think a lot of it depends on the level of effort a student is willing to put in to get that education. How much peer pressure is he getting not to get that education? So, you know, the education opportunities are here. Can it be better? Yes. It can always be better no matter where you go. Is it to the point that you want to give up? You never give up. You never give up. You do what you can to try to make things better.
Mr. Harris, you have mentioned all through the program, and we at the top of the program, we mentioned issues in North Chicago. And the issues are not only City Hall issues, but there's school, you know, the Park District, what library, which we haven't mentioned yet, we want to address, the housing and so forth. There are many issues that make up the total of North Chicago, and all of these are looked at by people when they want to move into a city. But tell us about library. How important are libraries in a city?
Well, when I was going to school, I didn't think it was important at all. I hated libraries.
Okay.
A library is very important. You know, it helps to stimulate the mind, the creativity. It gives kids a place to go, and even adults. I use the library now to go to find information and do research. It's just, I don't think you can measure it. I think it's that important that I don't even think you can measure it. But you know, it has to be encouraged. Okay, it has to be encouraged. For example, I don't know if the school library is in sync with the public library. Okay, for what we don't carry, the public library has. Is there any cross-reference saying, well, you can't get this here, but you can get it there? You know, can you order things in the school library and have it delivered from the public library? I don't know, but you need those types of communications in order to encourage these.
Speaking of employees, North Chicago has several employees, and you have to take care of the needs. You have to have a listening ear to your employees if you want to maintain those employees. And one of the main benefits now, and you know, you're just out of the corporate world, is about medical plans or insurance rates. And I wonder, in other words, you know as well as I know that the companies are cutting back and have employees pay more towards that benefit than ever before. But what about a city? You think a city should use that as a cutting point and cutting back and on health benefits?
Well, you know, the one thing that cities should not do is always follow what corporate America does.
Okay.
Corporate America, their main goal and mission in life is to maximize profit, return on stockholders' equity. So they're trying to make money. A city should never try to make money. At the end of the year, the book should be zero. Okay. If you have surpluses, then that means you're charging too much in taxes. Okay, so the city should be self-sufficient in that regard. Now, in terms of benefits, this country dictated years ago that in order to have medical benefits, you need to have a job. Okay. That's part of working, you know, which I don't agree with that. But if you didn't have a job, you didn't have benefits. Okay. So in order to have them, you have to have a job. I think it is incumbent upon the city to, yes, take care of your employees. You need to provide them the things that they need in order to be very content in what they're doing. A happy employee and a content employee is a good employee, and they're going to work for you. If you give employees any reason whatsoever not to be happy, then they're going to take it out on their performance. Their performance is not going to be there. So I think, again, it's our job to find ways to do things. We don't say, well, we can't do it. Your job is to find solutions to problems. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful.
Now, let's look at our Marion City Council, which is our administrative, like you mentioned, executive, legislative, and judicial branch of government. But there's training required, and also recommended, the required and recommended training. How do the Marion City Council members get the training? What training is available?
Well,
you know, every job you try to improve yourself, you know.
First of all, the selection, I think, of elected officials, your citizens have to screen that. They have to know what they're looking for in order to hire someone. You know, do you hire someone that has ran a business, have escalated themselves, have developed themselves, have the education level, or do you hire your next door neighbor that you've been known for 30 years? Okay. You know, it's the old adage, you get what you pay for. You know, we send our kids to school, we tell them to get a good education, to study hard, to work, and you're going to get a good job and you're going to make good money. We need to apply those same concepts in our selection of people in terms of who we put in office. Now, yes, once you get in office, there are a lot of seminars. National League of Cities has excellent seminars that they teach you what's going on today in different communities. You know, and you can learn a lot. And in some cases, why reinvent the wheel? If they're doing some things that can benefit in our community, don't reinvent the wheel, let's replicate it.
Fantastic. So it's up to the individual elected officials themselves whether they want to participate or not.
Absolutely. It's up to them, and again, that goes back to leadership. When you're a leader, when you're a self-starter, you want to improve yourself, you want to go and do the best job that you can. If you find people that's in office, don't go to seminars, don't attend, then they're not looking to do anything.
Okay, what about the police department? We find we lose a lot of young policemen coming to on our staff. Why is that?
I can only tell you why when I was there. That the politics was so great that, you know, a policeman has a tough job.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, and you know, I support policemen because I used to be one.
Okay.
They have a tough job.
Okay.
They have a thankless job. Okay, then when the upstairs funnels into their day-to-day work, that makes it even tougher. Then salary. When you look at the risk-reward part, you know, the crime or the issues that they're dealing with in North Chicago compared to Lake Forest, Highland Park, and those cities, totally different. But yet the salary is a lot greater. So now if I'm going to be a policeman, do I work in North Chicago and make $40,000 or $50,000 a year and risk, you know, the risk that are involved in North Chicago, or do I go to Lake Forest and Highland Park and make maybe $50,000 or $60,000 with less risk?
Fantastic.
The other part of it too, and it goes back to, is residency. You know, the policemen are required to live in North Chicago. I think they loosen that and say you can live within a 5-mile radius. Well, you know, it's a decision you have to make from a career standpoint, but a law should not force people to live in the community. People should come into your community because they want to, because they want to be a part, they want to contribute. And that, when you force someone to do anything, they're not going to do it well and they're not going to do it long.
Well, tell us, the citizens' elections, for example. We have, you mentioned, 13,000 local, and I guess for motor fuel tax purposes, then Great Lakes and the VA numbers are added.
Right.
So just for to make a vote. But the voting population is very low, but the citizens, after they elect someone into office, they can go to city council meetings. What can they expect by going to city council meetings?
Well, these meetings, I think we've all seen them. We've been there, we've seen them on TV.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think you're not going to get a lot right now.
But right now, but what should happen in city council meetings?
What should happen is, again, the mayor has a vision. Council buys in or works with the mayor to create that vision. The council meeting should be implementation of that vision.
Okay.
Any deviation from that, and you're off track. You have your normal housekeeping chores, you have to pay your bills, those types of things. But the majority of that time should be on that vision. What are we going to do to rebuild, to build up, to attract, you know, to grow? Those should be the major conversations of what the council does.
Well, at part of the city council meetings, there's a allotted time for citizens' comments. At that time, citizens can have input.
Correct.
But that input is just input. And but they have pressure because the aldermen normally have ward meetings, right? And where the citizens could express their views and so forth.
Some do and some don't. Some aldermen do and some aldermen don't. It's just been my experience that when you're elected in office, I think the citizens want to say, I put you in office, I trust you're going to do the right thing.
Okay.
And so don't bother me. You know, some of the ward meetings, you don't have a lot of people that show up for various reasons, whatever the reason is.
Okay.
But they still have put them in office and entrusted in them to do the right things. So it's still incumbent upon the alderman and the mayor to do the things that need to be done to move this. You know.
Are those the citizens that complain a lot, the ones that don't participate?
Right. That happens. That happens.
Right. Well, there's committee meetings and there's city council meetings, and hopefully that this will become a better city with better input. What about consultants? If things are not going right the way they should be in City Hall, do they have opportunity to have a consultant come in and try to put them on the right track?
Well, the city has an opportunity to do anything they want.
Okay.
You know, they make
They're autonomous.
They're autonomous. They have the opportunity to do anything they want. The main thing that you have to get away from, and that is pointing fingers.
Okay.
When things happen, well, you know, it's their fault. Everybody has to take stock and look within themselves. Am I doing what I should be doing? If everybody does that, then I think the city can start moving.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, when it's always somebody else's fault,
okay,
then you're not going to get anything done because you can't control that someone else.
I noticed that what we may mention is that there should be a coalition of agencies to get together, probably it's not monthly, maybe quarterly. In a coalition, I mean the county, the park district, the schools, I mean the superintendent schools, you know, Chicago Medical Schools, the North Chicago VA director, Apple Laboratories, the North Chicago Chamber of Commerce, the North Chicago Rotary Club, the Lions Club, state representatives, state senator, the library head, the North Chicago Housing Authority. That's a wealth of knowledge. Then who should bring this coalition together to make sure that you know, we have the proper representation?
Well,
goals, I should say goals.
Again, when you set up your mission and goals for your community,
okay,
when you develop your strategy, there are certain things and resources you're going to need to implement that strategy.
Okay.
Okay. Some of those resources could be a county representative. Someone could be a state representative. Someone could be park board. I mean, it all depends on where you're trying to take your group or your organization.
Okay.
But they should be aware of it. Your county has $230 million budget. Mm-hmm. Some of that money should be spent back in North Chicago. Okay. But does North Chicago have a goal or they have a vision of what they're going to spend that money on? Okay. You can't just say downtown. Downtown doesn't mean anything. It's too generic. Okay. What are you doing downtown? Who's coming downtown? You know, what are you trying to develop downtown into? Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. and I just don't see that right.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's new on the horizon for James Harris? We have to give you some time here. I've been leading, but now, what's new on the horizon for you?
Well, you know, interesting, I've had a good career. Okay. My career ended, not so much the way we all want our careers to end.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
A few years ago, I got sick.
Okay.
I had congestive heart failure, okay. Kidney failure. You name it, I had it.
Okay.
I was on 20 pills a day.
Okay.
I will say that I've been blessed. I've really been blessed. When I came here, I was pretty sick. Okay. So therefore, I did have to retire after all of that. But through a lot of prayer, through a lot of prayer, and belief and faith, mm-hmm. You know, I'm back to my old self again. Mm-hmm. So, you know, since I've been here, 2.5 years, I've met with a lot of the citizens, and a lot of them approached me. And with the issues that we have in City Hall, okay. A lot of people have asked me to run from there. Oh. You know, it's interesting, it's intriguing. Mm-hmm. I have the education, I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the leadership skill. I think I have all the credentials, okay. That it takes to lead the city where it needs to go. And I think that you're going to see February 22nd, my name on the ballot.
Okay, okay. Now, you mentioned that, you know, we start out with a prayer, and of course, prayer is vitally needed. We're going to have prayer in our lives. And so the influence of church has played a great part in your life. Now, when I say church, you know, we think of the building, but the church is in the heart. Right. And the church has been a great influence in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes we get so busy in our professional careers or our day-to-day life that we forget to give thanks to the people the person that really made it happen for you. But we can't do anything without God. Okay. We can't do anything outside of His time frame. Our time frame is not always His. Okay. There was a reason why I came back to North Chicago. I don't know why. You know, when I was in Toledo in the hospital, they gave me 24 hours to live. Mm. Well, I'm still here. Okay. So there's a reason. You know, and you try to search for those reasons. I know there's a need here. It's just a matter of, can I convince the people that I can satisfy that need? Because I have the capability of doing it. It's just a matter of, you know, either friend of his and he's a relative of his, and, well, it's his turn because he's been on the council. If you can get away from those things and start looking at your elected officials the same way you want to look at your school teachers, your principals, your superintendent, what are the requirements that you have for these people? And most of it's in around education. And you can't do anything without education. It doesn't happen.
You mentioned politics, so isn't it negotiation? Is that just part of leadership?
That's part of leadership. Whenever you're doing anything, there's more than one person involved. You have to negotiate, but the key to negotiation is to create a win-win situation. Everyone has to win. And if everyone wins, then you're going to see the fruit.
Mr. James Harris, I want to thank you very much for taking time from your very busy schedule to be on Community Forum. And I would say for the past hour, you sound like a winner. But it's for the people of North Chicago to decide whether Mr. James Harris, who has a master's degree in business education, he's been part of the corporate world, and he knows how to negotiate, and he knows how to meet in the boardroom. He knows how to play golf. And so I had to give him an opportunity, which I will give all of the candidates an opportunity to be on Community Forum. Mr. Harris has been the lead-off man, and I really appreciate your being on the program.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.